Hi, Joel. Welcome. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Hey, Noah.
Hey, how's it going? I'm
Hey.
I'm glad we finally got this on the books. I'm excited to learn more about you, and um, we can get started. Good afternoon, Whale Point Talk community. My name is Noah. I'm here today with Joel Comm. And Joel, before we get started diving into all the awesome things that you have done and that you are doing, do you want to give us a quick background of yourself, your career trajectory, and how you found yourself working in the Web3 industry?
Oh gosh, I've been into computers as long as I can remember. I was 16 years old when I bought a TRS-80 Model 1 with 4K of RAM. I'm really going to date myself here because that was 1980 when I did that. And I was dialing into BBSs on a 300 baud modem. So that means I am now in my 43rd year of being online. Yeah, boy, I say that now I feel really old. But I built my first website in 1995, and since then I've dabbled and played in a lot of different sandboxes that the online world has offered us, from building sites and selling sites, monetizing sites, pioneering some technologies. Built the with my partner the internet's premier game room that became Yahoo Games when they bought it from us back in 1998. I have been in the affiliate marketing space, internet marketing, social media marketing, live video marketing. I've written 15 books. I've spoken around the world. And for the past almost 6 years, I've been down the crypto rabbit hole and have done a podcast with my buddy Travis Wright called the Bad Crypto Podcast. And we have the longest running NFT centric podcast called The Nifty Show. That's almost 3 years old right now. We've also minted over 1.5 million NFTs on the Wax blockchain and had a number of successful IPs of our own. We love the Web3 space. It's I get to be 12 years old forever and play with all the fun toys.
Man, so you've been around for quite a while and seen a lot of really interesting things. I can't relate to having a TRS-80 Model 1. I can relate, though, to having one of those early gateway computers
Oh yeah.
that barely connected to the internet. And so I didn't get to live through the dot-com boom, but I am living through the crypto boom, and it's been awesome. So I guess there's a lot to talk about, and I wanted to talk about the first website you built in '95. Like, what was that website?
The
Can you tell us more about it?
Sure. The website was worldvillage.com, and it was probably, I registered that domain and launched the site in July of 95. So that year, there was about 18,000 sites in the whole world. So since I set mine up mid year, I want to guess that it was in the first 10,000 websites that were developed. And it was designed to be a software review site, primarily for parents, so they knew what was going on with the games that their kids were playing, educational software. It was the beginning of the CD-ROM software multimedia era. And then I started adding games to the site, which back then were very primitive, image maps and point and click type games. But that site still exists. Because of all of the other things that I've done, it ended up taking a back seat. But it is a 27-year-old website now, and I've been using it for AI articles. I've been posting. Sorry, learn to mute myself when I sneeze. I've been playing with ChatGPT in Mid Journey, and I've been converting the site just as a plaything to AI created articles to see how will Google and the other search engines pick up on this content from this old site. And so that's a little experiment I'm running with it now.
Joel, ChatGPT is very exciting to me as it is to many others. I've been playing with it a lot myself. From your experience, what do you think it's going to do? What do you think we're seeing the beginning of with ChatGPT? Because I already have seen it displace, or not displace, but help a lot of writers and people with their kind of day-to-day tasks, such as emails and if you're a blogger, making sure your blog sounds as good as it possibly can. But what are your thoughts on it after you played with it for so long, as someone
Yeah.
that's inquisitive and wants to, yeah.
Well, it's not just ChatGPT; it's the whole AI movement that's exploding now. So it's images, it's artwork, it's photography, it's audio. I've actually played with a tool that will I feed it my voice, and then I give it words, and it speaks in my voice. It's not perfect yet, but they're getting there, and there's so many AI tools. What this means is that creators now have so many different tools at their disposal to be able to create their work. What it also means is if you are not on the high end of the bell curve as a writer, as an artist, as a photographer, as a content creator, then you're about to get left behind. So, what it's going to do in terms of individuals who will be paid and compensated for their work, it's going to weed out the true talent from the rest. Because there's always a bell curve. The low end of the bell curve, you have people that are horrible at whatever the task is. Then you've got the great middle of the bell curve, and then you've got the small number that excel, that are the truly talented people in the space. And those are the ones who are going to survive. So for me, it means if you had a Fiverr job where you were just spinning up content, we don't need you anymore, because I can go and put in Chat GPT, give me 500 words on any topic, and I have an article. I don't need to pay somebody. I'm not an artist at all. I can barely draw a stick figure, but if I need a quality image, I can go to Midjourney for $10 a month and create incredible artwork that I can now use for my site, for my NFTs, whatever it is I want to do. So if you are not on the high end of being talented as an artist or a photographer, then it's going to be a lot harder for you to find work. At the same time, just as people will be losing opportunity that they have monetized for a time, it's going to open up a door to all kinds of new opportunities that have yet to be revealed.
Um, we did a couple episodes on ChatGPT, and the way I think about AI is there are a handful of people that are creative, and there are even a smaller percentage of those creative people that are able to express that creativity, whether it's a developer trying to build a video game, whether it's a writer, whether it's someone trying to build a company. And AI is going to allow that bigger pool of creatives who might not be able to express themselves in that way to do so. And I think that, as you put it, or at least as I understood it, it's going to increase that pool of creativity, that output of creativity into the rest of the world. Do you agree, or do you think I'm off? I'm off by a note.
No, I think that it's definitely going to increase the output, because we can do things that, used to take hours, days, to create a piece of art that somebody would use for, say a header for a blog entry. And I can go create something in a matter of minutes. And so, the output that we're already seeing, I love going to Midjourney and go to the newbies channel and just see what people are creating, and it goes so quickly. It's just pumping out art. And I think it's things like Chat GPT are going to change the way that we search. Why ask Google to see a list of websites when I can just ask AI to give me the information that I'm looking for? Help me plan my trip, and it comes with ideas for 10 things to do when you're vacationing in Thailand. It's amazing to me. It's not perfect. There's still a long way to go, but it's iterating so quickly that anybody who's doing any kind of business at all, ignore this at your own peril.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And a mentor of mine said that those who learn how to use AI tools and become well versed on them are going to be well ahead of that pack, especially um, noting that bell curve you just talked about. So, Joel, bringing it back to your story, is village.com, that's not the site that you sold to Yahoo. You sold a site that you built a game site that um, that you sold to Yahoo in 1998. Tell us a bit about that and how that whole process was and what that feeling was like. It seems like Yahoo was on a buying spree in the dot-com bubble.
They really were the dot-com boom, which turned out to be a bubble, and we knew it was going to pop. I wrote it up, I wrote it down, and I wrote it back up again. Worldvillage.com was where I was able to first express my love for games, and created some games, and hosted some games on it. And then my webmaster had discovered one of the world's first Java based multiplayer game rooms. It was called SpringerSpan.com, after the developer Springer Spaniel. And he had a few of his friends beta testing this game site where they were playing chess and checkers and hearts and spades. And I saw it and I thought, this is groundbreaking. But he's a developer. He's not, he's not a business person. He's not a marketer. So I approached him. I say, hey, let's grow this thing and let's rebrand it. And we did. We rebranded it to classicgames.com. And we brought thousands of people concurrently to play not just those games, but I think by the time right before we sold it to Yahoo, we had 16 games, cribbage and bridge, and a bunch of others. And Yahoo came knocking on our door. They wanted to work with us and flew us out to San Jose to visit their HQ, and made us an offer and countered back and forth, and eventually came to a deal. It was my first seven-figure deal, and they acquired the site, and they also hired my partner Aaron to become the chief game Yahoo, so they can continue developing it. And it's a shame that Yahoo has screwed up so many things, because they actually shut down the game site a few years ago, and the public was not happy about that, because they had a lot of players, and I'm still not sure I understand why they shut it down. But for those who remember Yahoo Games, you would go to the site and you would choose an avatar, and one of the avatars was a guy with a red cap, glasses, and a goatee, and that was me. So it's always funny, sometimes when I speak, I'll show a slide of the avatar and people go, "Oh, I played as that guy. That was you." So it's kind of fun. I got a little icon avatar that was me.
I remember those avatars, and I still have my avatar. I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't use my Yahoo Mail much anymore, but when I do log into it from time to time, I still see that avatar, and it's really cool to kind of see what I was conceptualizing back when I don't know, it was maybe like 8 or 9. Um, Joel, tell. I was watching an interview with Mark Cuban, and he was talking about his first seven-figure deal and how he felt like he was on the top of the world. He bought I think he bought an American Airlines lifetime pass or something that let him travel all the time, and he was just partying and having a blast. So what that feel like? What that feel like closing a seven-figure deal? What'd you do? Did you ride off into the sunset for a bit, or did you just kind of move on to the next venture and keep building projects?
Yeah, I've always been pretty conservative with my funds, and I would watch people who came into money all of a sudden go and buy big houses and boats and just get crazy with it. And I was married, I had a couple small children, and I always managed to keep more than I spent. So I've been very fortunate, even during the dot-com bust that happened in 2000 and lasted for several years. I never went into the red, but it felt good, because for the first time in my life, I was able to pay off my mortgage and pay off my credit card debt, and I've never had to look back. But I didn't do anything that was crazy. It just, I think being financially responsible is super important, and yet you could still have nice things and do the things that you want to do. Too many people blow it, which is why people who win the lottery tend to lose their winnings, because they don't understand that, hey, this is not forever. And when things were going really well, and I mean very, very well, through 1999, it was easy to think, oh, the internet's always going to be this upward trajectory. And then the bottom fell out. Well, I was ready when the bottom fell out, and articles were being written that the internet is dead, the World Wide Web has failed. And I thought, what fools. What fools. These are the same people today that continue to write articles that say Bitcoin is dead or NFTs are dead. I've seen this movie before, and I think to myself, what fools. These aren't visionaries. These are mainstreamers. They don't understand the technology. They don't understand the revolution that's taking place. And I knew that the World Wide Web was here to stay, and I knew that e-commerce was here to stay, and everything would be back. And when it did come back in 2004, it came back with a vengeance. And we've never looked back. We all live on the internet now, for better or for worse.
Uh, I've seen this movie and episode play out. I call it the 2018-2019 bear market.
Mm-hmm.
So curious to know, Joel, do you think that with respect to crypto, we are, and Web3, we are currently where the dot-com boom or the dot-com life cycle was in the early 2000s?
Yeah, I would say that we're still very early. If you are looking at a technology adoption chart, you've got your pioneers, then your early adopters, then your mass adoption, late adoption, and stragglers. And stragglers are, that's your grandmother that still doesn't know how to set the clock on her VCR, right? The Luddites that never will use the technology. And that's fine because it's not for everybody. I've been pioneering technology and uses of it my whole career. So I've just got a knack for seeing where the needle is moving. And so I heard about Bitcoin and crypto back in probably 2012 or 13, but I was in the midst of some personal issues and wasn't really paying attention to the new technology, and frankly I didn't take the time to understand what Bitcoin mining went. So I didn't understand how it worked. So I didn't really understand blockchain. It wasn't until 2017 that I decided to finally go down the rabbit hole and take a look at it. And once I understood it, I thought, oh my gosh, this, when I look back at what I discovered in 1995, this reminds me of that. It's happening all over again, and that's when I pretty much turned away from everything else I was doing in my marketing career in writing, and I went all in on crypto. We are still, in terms of NFTs, we're an early adoption. In terms of crypto, we're an early adoption. But in terms of metaverse and the rest of Web3, play and own gaming, we're in the pioneering to early adoption phase. It's still going to be several years before we get there. So I would say it feels more like 1999 or 2000, when you had people that were developing and building, but the money had dried up. And when it comes back, it's going to come back with a vengeance, because every sign we see is forward movement. There's just not a day that goes by that we don't see governments investigating how to legitimize cryptocurrencies or what to do with it, how to use blockchain for in their infrastructure, that we don't see corporations doing the same, that we don't see entrepreneurs pioneering new ways to use this technology. It's all moving forward. It's obvious. And the day is going to come when those who said, I will never own an NFT, and there's plenty of them, they will own NFTs.
Yeah, beautifully put. And I'm a big advocate of Web3 gaming, as you mentioned. I do think it's in the pioneering phase. And a lot of people in the gaming community that I speak to hate crypto, they hate NFTs for whatever reason. I think once we're able to convey things in a different language, and you can make this argument for other sectors of the industry, people will really see the value. So once you tell a World of Warcraft player who spent 10 years accumulating all these items and all these achievements on their account, that hey, what if you could have that account and those assets were all NFTs, and you could date them back on the timeline and they had notoriety, and then you could sell those for real life money on the marketplace once you could go. I think it's a paradigm shift in the way gamers are going to play video games. I think it's a paradigm shift in the way that video game studios are going to build games. So that's one sector that I'm really excited about. And I'm sure you've probably looked well into it. You have experience building games, but wanted to dive into that a bit deeper. What are your thoughts on not metaverse, but Web3 gaming specifically?
Well, I think that you've really set the table for it perfectly, that you have millions of dollars being spent on in-game items that people don't actually own. They're licensing the right, the privilege to use those items. And while there might be some secondary marketplaces within some of the games, they're not true marketplaces where you're transferring ownership. It's a license. Once people understand, first of all, that NFTs are not killing the environment, in spite of the silly narrative that's been put out there, and that they're cash grabs or that they're tulips, and they will realize all that. And once we change the messaging from NFT to digital ownership, because that's really what it is, I think people will then be like, oh, that skin that I bought at Fortnite, I'm done playing Fortnite, but I can sell that skin and somebody will give me real money for it. Yes, please. So it's going to happen. The play to earn model is a horrible model, but play and own is a wonderful model. And I think that's the one that's going to survive and thrive. And while we've seen platforms like Steam shy away from crypto and NFT based gaming, they're going to come around in time. All of the biggies are going to come around, and it's going to become an integral part of their everyday commerce.
Yep, just to echo that, a video game first and foremost must be fun to play,
Yep.
and the notion of asset ownership is icing on the cake.
Totally. But
Joel,
I've worked with
sorry, go.
my son Zach. He's 31 now, and he is a strong gamer. I mean, he's played thousands of games, and he takes deep dives to discover what makes games fun and what makes them unplayable. And he developed a series called Draco Dice about a year and a half ago, and they were amongst the blockchain's first portable gaming pieces. The idea is that you can have these D20E, the set of dice that are collectible and attractive, but that any developer could incorporate these dice into a game. So now you've got pieces that are portable that can be used by any developer. And when you think about it, in gaming, there's really not too many pieces that are portable. You don't bring your chess pieces to a chessboard, but you bring your dice to a D&D or a Pathfinder game or any of the other RPGs. And he's all about games must be fun first. Otherwise, you're creating a model where people are coming just to get the token and dump it on the market, and the game dies. And we've seen that happen too many times already.
And I think that's just the symptom of the pioneering phase that you referred to in pretty much sector. So, Joel, I want to take a step back before your crypto journey and get into the 2000s and like the early 2010s. You said you built and sold sites, you monetized sites. Can you go into a bit more detail about some of the projects and some of the websites that you worked on? I know you worked on probably dozens and dozens, but what some of the notable ones?
Sure. So in 1998, I launched FamilyFirst.com, which was designed for parents with families. We produced content, and that site has been relinquished to a nonprofit organization called Family First a few years ago. Once I stopped working it in 1999, I had one of the first bargain hunting websites. Today, they're very commonplace, Retail Me or Not, and some others where you go to find coupon codes and discounts from all the major merchants. Well, we had relationships with all those merchants back in 99 and owned a site called dealofday.com. Sold it 10 years ago. I'm not sure what it's doing right now. So that was notable. And when the .com era, when we came back in 2004, it was because I was looking for all different ways to monetize my websites and was playing with all kinds of different programs that I saw coming out. And one of them that came out in 2004 was Google's AdSense program. And that was where you could take a piece of code, put it on your website, and Google would automatically deliver ads that were relevant to the content on your website. It was pretty pioneering stuff, and I started making some real money. In fact, by late 2004, I was making over $500 a day passively with Google Ads. And so a friend said to me, you should write a book about this. So I thought, okay, that's an interesting idea. I had written one book before a few years earlier, but not one on how to make money online, legitimately. And so I wrote an ebook, and the thing sold like hotcakes. It was $79, sold thousands of copies. And so I updated it with a second edition that was twice the size with all these different strategies. And then a publisher came to me and said, we should turn this into a physical book. So that was turned into a book that was called The AdSense Code, released in 2006, and it went on to become a New York Times bestseller. So all of a sudden, I found myself thrust into the internet marketing channel and asked to go speak at events and conferences. And I spoke at Tony Robbins events several times. I spoke around the world at conferences in Singapore and Russia and Germany, and became a keynote speaker. So, lots of different little journeys along the way, and it's been a lot of fun.
Wow. And is Google's AdSense program, I'm not familiar with it, is it still as lucrative? I'm sure probably not, because more people have found out about it, but it still functions the same way, or has it evolved over time?
It still functions mostly the same way. Since I don't have content sites that I've monetized with AdSense in years, I'm not really plugged into it anymore. But I think anybody can go to adsense.google.com and check out the latest iteration of it. It's the backside of AdWords, right? It's Google's ad beast is a two-headed beast. You have the advertisers spending money, and then you have the publishers that are providing the outlet beyond Google's own pages to the network of sites to see those ads. So I know that Google ads are doing well. So I would assume that AdSense is still doing well for certain people.
So you're clearly good at finding new technology and recognizing different business models or different opportunities within that new technology's ecosystem. You did it clearly with the internet, and you started doing it with with Web3. You said you minted over 1.5 million NFTs on the Wax blockchain. I actually hadn't heard about the Wax blockchain until recently. We had Miss Teen Crypto on, and she said she had minted some collections on there. But tell us a bit about your NFT projects, and tell us a bit about some of the other projects that you were working on in Web3.
Sure, and I'll say this: I love NFTs on every platform because I'm an NFT fan. I've minted NFTs on a dozen different blockchains, so I can say with some sort of authority and experience that it's unfortunate that Ethereum has become the primary place for NFTs because it's slower, but more because people have spent untold millions in gas fees to miners in order to mint NFTs. When I discovered the Wax blockchain, it was a fork of EOS. This thing can mint NFTs instantly. If I were to have your Wax wallet address, I hit send, and 1 second later, it's in your wallet, and it costs me nothing, no gas fees at all. I can mint NFTs, by the thousands for $100. It is just it's so cost effective, and it works so well. And a lot of people hadn't heard of Wax, but if you go to DApp Radar and you look at the top games, the top play and own games on the blockchain, you'll see that 4 of 7 of them are tied to Wax. And the marketplaces are very busy. There's hundreds of thousands of collections, and something like 350 million NFTs have been minted on the main marketplace, Atomic Hub. So back in 2020, when we discovered this, I went to my partner, Travis Wright, who's my co host on the Bad Crypto podcast, and my son, Zach. And I said, what if we created a universe of digital collectibles that would be heroes inspired by real life blockchain and crypto personalities? And we'll call them blockchain heroes. So the website is bcheroes.com. We were the first major property to release on Atomic Assets, which is now the standard for all NFTs on Wax. If you'll go to atomichub.io, you can see the marketplace there. We sold out the collection of 12,000 packs in something like 20 minutes. Built a great following of people who really enjoyed uh, collecting these different heroes and all kinds of variations with animations and lighting effects and a great pack opening experience. Our whole thing was always to surprise and delight our fans. And we released 3 other sets of blockchain heroes, have also released different iterations of them on the Internet Computer blockchain, on the Quid app, on the Limpo app. And we, because we liked the cards that we'd created so much, I turned to my partners and I said, I would like to own a physical deck of these cards, just collectible cards. And so I looked into it, found a guy who produced cards, and we went to our community and said, "Would you guys want these?" And they said yes. A week later, we held the first NFT Kickstarter ever. It was in late 2020, where people bought an NFT that represented a physical deck of cards. We sold 700 of them in 24 hours, and each deck was sealed. And within the seal, there was a QR code that linked them to bonus NFTs. So there's a lot of sealed decks that are out there still that have these rare NFTs in them. And I'll tell you about one more project before I let you get a word in edgewise. And I was thinking, as we received our dog's subscription box, the Bark box, great little monthly subscription box we get for Rufus. And I thought there needs to be an NFT subscription box. So in September 2020, we sold the Nifty box. And it was an annual membership in 2 different levels that would entitle you to receive NFTs dropped to your wallet. But unlike a traditional physical subscription box that comes once a month, I was able to make it rain NFTs from dozens of partners for the duration, hundreds actually, over the length of the subscription, and brought all kinds of surprise and delight to people who had subscribed to it.
So is this 3 collections in total?
Those are 3 different projects: the Blockchain Heroes, which had 4 releases; the Nifty Box, which was its own collection. We also did a partnership with the game Upland, which is one of the top blockchain-based games, where we released Upland collectibles, and we brought utility to the set because in the game you have block explorers that are roaming around this virtual, metaverse. And if you got a mythic one out of our collectible set on wax, you were able to bring it through the portal into their ecosystem and actually play with it or sell it if you chose to. And of course, I told you about Draco Dice, DRACO, DracoDice.com. This was Zach's project, my son. I worked with him on that, and we sold that project out. I think he did like $500,000 in sales when that happened, late 2021, I want to say. And it's unfortunate the market's taken such a beating, because the value of everybody's NFTs has gone down. But I like to look at things through the lens of time. Having been through the ups and downs so many times and having been a fan of collectibles, there are people to this day say NFTs are Beanie Babies. But have you looked at the value of those original Beanie Babies today? There are some of them that are worth thousands of dollars. And I'm not just talking the first ones released, I'm talking about ones that were released earlier. And so if NFTs are Beanie Babies, then we're in good company. I think that anything that's been released up till now, look through the lens of time, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, these are OGs. These collections, and this is not financial advice because we don't know which ones are going to be the ones, but we look at a collection of 10,000 PFPs and think, oh, that's too many. That's an oversupply. But that's short sighted. If you look through the lens of the future, there are going to be hundreds of millions, if not a billion people or more, that are collecting NFTs or using NFTs in some form. All of a sudden, a profile picture collection of 10,000 is incredibly rare. And so I try to look at, what we're doing now as how do we make it relevant today. But I also like to look through the lens of the future and look back and go, how will we view these things that we're creating 5, 10, 20 years from today?
I hold, I hold, I wholeheartedly agree with you. When you say Beanie Babies, I say Pokemon. I'm just thinking of the Pokemon cards that so many of my friends collected, and yeah, I remember Pokemon lovers and first edition ones. Not even talking about those, but a lot of these holographic Pokemon cards from the first generation and second generation are worth thousands of dollars if they're in good condition. So I really see that. To build, I think at this point, 4 projects, including Zach's. What other sectors of the industry excite you outside of gaming and NFTs?
Well, I think we have to be talking about the metaverse. That's big in the news. I don't like the way we use the terminology, because when we think about the metaverse is a singular place, and that happens when there is a bridge, a combination where you can move from one virtual world to another. So when people talk about building their own metaverse, I always cringe just a little bit, because you're not building a metaverse, you're building your own virtual world. It's a walled garden within your world. But for the sake of using terminology that everybody's using now, this concept of virtual spaces where people can interact, shop, play, network, create, this is going to be big. We've seen, especially during a period of COVID when people are locked down, how much more we need connection with other humans. And I think that this is a perfect grounds for, this is a very fertile place for that type of thing to happen. But of course, NFTs don't stop there. In fact, gaming, I believe, in metaverse is going to be the way we onboard the masses, but practical applications are going to go way beyond that. I mean, the time will come in the not too distant future when your driver's license will be an NFT. Your home deed will be an NFT, and when somebody buys your house, you'll transfer that NFT. The broker will handle that through escrow, and this is proof of ownership, digital ownership. Your car title will be an NFT. And I apologize if you're hearing any noise. We have some construction going here in the house, and I'm moving around to try to avoid the noise.
Yeah, I make the argument that metaverses have existed. I mean, if you ever played an MMORPG, that's a metaverse. Metaverses existed when we had AOL Instant Messenger chat rooms, MIRC. What we're seeing today on the blockchain is just the next step in evolution for the metaverse. And what we referred to as the metaverse in the past is something else with another terminology. um, so I wanted to talk a bit about your podcast. You have a podcast called the Bad Crypto Podcast that you host with Travis Wright. When did you guys start that, and what kind of content can listeners expect to hear when they plug in?
Bad content. So we started the show on a whim in July of 2017. Travis and I have been friends, for many years. We're both authors and speakers, and we're both seasoned podcasters. So we understand all the things it takes to put together a professional show. Content wise, production wise, and then to bring it to an audience. And he and I were having conversations every day via Messenger, talking about crypto. What do you think about, the price of Ethereum? What do you think about this new thing called Ant Shares? Apparently they're renaming it Neo. And we would just have these conversations. And I had started buying crypto that year. And he, because we were having these conversations every day, he just said to me via Messenger one day with a winky face, "When are we going to start the Joel and TW crypto show?" And the moment he said that, I thought, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. We can just take these conversations public, because we're not financial advisors, we're not experts, but we're really good interviewers, and we know how to create content, and we enjoy our discussions going down the rabbit hole. So maybe others will enjoy listening in. And so we called it the Bad Crypto Podcast, not because crypto bad, but because we didn't know what we were talking about. We're bad, and we have a lot of bad dad jokes, on the show. We don't take ourselves seriously, and the other shows that were out there at the time were very limited in quantity, and most of them were very technical. So when you're talking about appealing to the mainstream, if they were going over our heads, they were going over other people's heads as well. And we thought, well, let's create content that we would listen to. And so we launched the show. It became an instant success, which is one of those really rare things that happens in business. Most of the time it takes a lot of hard work and effort. But the hard work and effort came in our previous years from what we had done as far as building up our own persona, our social platforms, our own voice. And so when we launched the show, we had listeners instantly, and it took off. And it just so happened it took off as the bull market was taking off. So it was really good timing. So it'll be this July, we'll celebrate our sixth anniversary. And to date, we've interviewed, some of the biggest names in the crypto world, and we cover news. We do it with a sense of humor. We're very opinionated, so we don't, we alienate some people with words that we say, but we're authentically us. We have a good time, and you hear some bad jokes along the way. So it's badcryptopodcast.com.
I'd rather be authentic than try to appeal to everyone. End of the day, you can do everything right, and there'll still be people that are unhappy.
Yep.
And I think you said it correctly. You guys had done the work in the years prior. The podcast was just a subsidiary of all the hard work that you guys had done in the past. And so, sure, the content was great and the timing was pretty good, but I would say that its instant success was accumulation of all your hard work, as you mentioned as well in the years before. Where can we listen to some of these episodes?
Anywhere that podcasts are. So we're on iTunes and Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Stitcher, anywhere that podcasts are distributed. We do put video up on YouTube occasionally if there's some visuals we want to show. But YouTube was a complete asshole to us just a few months after we launched, because we had a Coinbase affiliate link in our description. They banned us. And 2 years or so later, met somebody who knew somebody at YouTube, and they ran it by him, and they said, oops, that was a mistake. So, building on rented land is rarely a good idea. And so we don't really work YouTube. We're more about, the audio show. If you want to see our faces, you can go look us up, but we don't really drive people there very much.
But platforms like YouTube are I think they're so important because someone like me really enjoys the content on there, and I enjoy that medium of entertainment. However, it does seem to me that there is a lot of arbitrary banning, or it's just like, oops, we made a mistake. Do you think the future of streaming platforms like YouTube are going to be Web3 based, where people can post content freely, and there is some sort of a governance structure, because there needs to be monitoring of really bad content, which I don't want to talk about. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah,